Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Better Events podcast this week. And in today's episode, we are talking all about event sustainability with Alycia Drube. Alycia is a friend of the podcast, but we have not talked about sustainability much yet on the podcast. So this is a very pivotal conversation that we should have probably had a long time ago, but we are so excited to have it today with Alycia. So let's go ahead and get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And we have a special guest this week, a friend of the pod, to talk all about event sustainability. So to leave as much time as we can for our lovely interview, I'm going to toss it over to Mary, who's going to introduce our guest.
I am genuinely excited to introduce our guest today. As Logan said, Alycia is a friend of the podcast, and I'm sure we're going to refer to that while we talk today. But for her bio, Alycia Drube is the founder of Positive Impact Event Consulting, a consulting company focusing on empowering event businesses with tools and strategies to stay ahead of the curve on event standards of sustainability. She got her Sustainable Event Profession certification from EIC and knew it was her mission to share what she learned with her community. Alycia's big goal is to help all of us in the event industry make a more positive impact by reducing the overwhelm and increasing action. Alycia, what a great bio. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I'm just excited to be on the first podcast I ever listened to when I decided to come into the events industry about events.
Oh, we love it. Thank you, Alycia, for being here. A little bit more for our guests if they don't know you. You are a friend of the pod. As we know, you were, I feel like in our early days, someone who reached out to us, which was super cool. You are a past BEPCon speaker. You spoke at our in-person day back in December here in Tacoma. And you're also a fellow podcaster now. So you have your own event podcast all about sustainability. So I love your approach to sustainability. I know my summary of what you do, I feel like, is you're breaking down this big buzzword into smaller, tangible, actionable steps, which, you know, our audience loves actionable steps. So listeners, this isn't going to be just another kind of, I'd say, fluffy episode about event sustainability. We're going to be kind of trying to break it down into things we can actually do. And you're going to hear Alycia walk Mary and I through some live consulting towards the end on actual events that we've had. So, Alycia, since you listen to the podcast, you know we like to start broad and define our terms for our audience. So how would you define sustainability in events?
Yeah, and you're so right. We hear so much in terms of the industry needs to do better on sustainability. Sustainability is our big buzzword of the year, all of that stuff. And I think that's a big barrier for a lot of us getting into it. So I'm going to make the idea of sustainability, which is so often big and overwhelming and causes people to do like the mental snowball into a big avalanche of, I don't know, there's so many complications, it's so intense. We're going to make it a little bigger so that you feel like you have some room to move around, which is by breaking it into 4 segments. And this is my favorite way to describe so that you can see how many opportunities you have to be touching sustainability and making improvements. So obviously, the way that we think about sustainability is environmentalism. But what I learned through the EIC program when we're looking at it for events is we can affect a lot. So let me back up. What is sustainability in the dictionary? It's the concept of things sustaining through time. Our goal is that humanity will sustain through time. And the 3 elements that you need to do that is the people being alive, them having a place to live, and them having a way to function with each other, which is environmentalism, accessibility, DEI, having human access, and the economy so that we can keep on doing that and improve our lives. And I add a 4th category, which is personal health and well-being. We all hear plenty about burnout. You two have been able to talk about a lot your personal ability to self-care and self-manage. So when I look at sustainability, I look at it at those 4 pillars: environmental, personal health and well-being, community and social, and economic. So that gives you already 4 places when you're looking at your planning or your business to say, if I don't have any bandwidth or time or money to impact environmentalism right now, how might I be able to impact the social and community aspect of my event, or my personal health and well-being, or the personal health and well-being of my attendees or my clients? How might I be able to impact the economic element of my event? Can I support more local businesses? Can I make a better impact on the financial charities that I care about? There's lots of ways to continue making a good impact without having to be worried that it has to be big and splashy or that it has to be environmental. So sustaining humanity little bits at a time is the big goal that my business is pushing, to be able to help all of us feel like we can keep going and actually contribute.
I love that you're breaking it down into these bite-sized pieces for sure, because I am a big fan of like baby steps or like little things like what that I can do to make something happen, or else it's very overwhelming. And I think that we see that when we talk about that buzzword of sustainability at events. So why do you think that sometimes it does feel more like this buzzword than a best practice or like a core piece of the planning, a big shift in the industry, like this pivotal thing, versus just a buzzword?
I was just on a call yesterday with a fellow sustainability consultant in events, and we had a little like 2-minute rage session where both of us just tried to get it out of our system how upsetting it is when sustainability comes on lists of buzzwords and trends for the industry, because it comes down to that idea of sustaining humanity. Like, it cannot be a trend to keep humanity alive and thriving on planet Earth. If it is, that's a terrible business model for you. Like, if your business is not interested in whether there will be clients in the future, whether we'll have the health and the capacity to be at events, like, I know, we're not all hoping to still be in the business in 50 years' time personally, but we love this industry. We love humanity for the most part, like, we're here, we love our people. Like, it's it's so funny to me to think of this big picture as a like, oh, it'll pass. And part of the reason is because we're in a bad time right now in 2025 with regards to the way that politics talks about this stuff. Politics wants to make it about a different side of economics. They want to support the businesses who are not interested in whether you're healthy in the future, whether your family is thriving. They want their company to thrive. Same thing with the political climate of whether or not accessibility or inclusivity are important. My personal perspective is that this is a business practice. And I've always cared. I'm a Captain Planet millennial. I think that it's so important to recycle, and I buy less plastic. And I think all those things are really like beneficial to my life. But when we look at our businesses, providing better service, improving our communities, supporting our local economy, these are all things that are very beneficial to business. So whether you're making a big step or a small step in that direction, to say that this is something that, you can do while it's cool to talk about and then you can move on seems kind of silly, because it's never going to stop being valuable to your business.
I wished I was a fly on the wall in your rage session about how it's a buzzword and not a core principle about events, because we've all been there. Mary's listened to many of my own rage about my own pet peeves, so I can only imagine. Thinking again about our event planner friends, our listeners here, what are some common mistakes that you see event planners or organizers make when it comes to trying to address sustainability at their events? And I will caveat, like, before you and I really talked about this stuff, in my head, it's like, well, are they using bamboo plates or styrofoam? Like, that's sustainability. They're choosing one way. They're unsustainable or they're sustainable. And I know your approach is much more broad than that. So what are some common mistakes you see?
Yeah, one of the reasons I started this consulting business is the most common mistake I see is postponing, not engaging, not starting to consider or talk about or incorporate sustainability concerns into your business. Even if it's just the concern of impacting your local economy, supporting other local business owners or female business owners or whatever the area that interests you the most, still not prioritizing that because of insecurity or nervousness or having that kind of domino effect in your mind. So many people run into, okay, if we get bamboo plates, are they sustainably, organically sourced bamboo? What if they don't go to the right biodegradable place and they end up in the landfill? And what about the this? And what about the that? And you spiral and spiral and spiral. And that slows a lot of us down. Event pros, maybe this is my hot take, but we're kind of perfectionists and we want everything to go great and we want it to be a fabulous experience and to do really well. And so a lot of times doing nothing means you won't do it wrong. And in this world, I'm going to try out my new metaphor I thought of this morning on you guys so you can tell me what you think. When we're looking at sustainability, overall, we're a long way from our goals. And in events, we are also a long way from our goals of doing really great positive impact, making a lot of movement on what we want the world to look like. So if you think of your sustainability goals in your own business and the nervousness you had in your mind of like, it seems important and I want to do something, but I don't want to do it wrong. As the very first day, the earliest part of load in, you've got so much to do until this event is built and ready for the public. It literally doesn't matter for the first hour what you do. Everything that you move and unload off a truck, whatever you have the energy for, whatever you're feeling in the mood for, whatever you can muster yourself to do is positive progress toward our goal of empty trucks, decorated environment, everything built. Literally do anything and you're making positive progress. So that's basically where we are right now with sustainability in events. And it's the same thing with the conversation. Mentioning it at all is already moving you past all the businesses that are nervous to mention it. It's getting you that SEO. It's getting you that exposure with the people who care and are curious about those things and Googling for those things. So we're at a really good point where the worst mistake you can make is to do nothing. After that, in my opinion, and I'm learning a lot about this from some local friends here in Seattle, there's a lot of negativity within the world of sustainability and all of our sort of liberal ideals of moving toward a really just future of kind of cancel culture. Oh, you ordered this, but it came plastic wrapped. You failed. And I don't want to be that person. I want you to feel like if you did better than last time, that's a win. If last time it was styrofoam and this time it was cardboard and you still have something to recycle, it's still, you haven't gone to zero waste, that's a big win. Ditching styrofoam counts as a win. You've done it. So that's, for me, starting is so, so, so important. And then after that, I think key takeaway wise, just pick something to focus on so that you're not overwhelming yourself. You're not trying to do everything all the time. Like I mentioned already, for me, it's reducing plastic. I don't buy a lot of things off the shelf. I don't buy a lot of things from Amazon. I skip a lot of things that might be nice to have because they're wrapped in plastic or because they're made of plastic. And that way I can see I'm repeating my habit in the same area to be able to see the results as opposed to going really scatter and trying to improve everything a tiny bit and not really seeing the results of that.
I love that idea of the repeatable habit because, yes, you can actually see results. And I think, yes, we as event professionals, sometimes we do have that decision-making power to be able to say, all right, every event from now on, we're really going to advise or push for, this one thing that we're going to try every time and see if it is making a difference. I love that. It gives us like a little bit of a manageable challenge, which feels actually kind of nice. Like I'm like, oh, I want to test that theory. I'm motivated by that. So hopefully others are too.
Excellent.
Yes. We did have a question because this is, a hot topic from one of our BEPCon attendees from December, and they were wondering what resources could be recommended in terms of the environmental sustainability of events. I'm sure there's a lot out there, but what are some resources for that you'd recommend?
Yeah, there's definitely tons. And I can say a lot of the resources you're going to find just on searching LinkedIn or searching Google is going to come up with things from the UK. They're doing such amazing work in the EU and the UK about producing materials to learn from. So, don't be surprised when that happens. People like myself who are out on LinkedIn talking about this stuff. I was talking yesterday with Alpha Tooth is another consulting company. And then also keep your eye out for things like the Events Industry News Sustainability Guide. That's free and easy to access. You're welcome to message me on LinkedIn with your email address and I'll send it right to you. I've got it, prepped and ready. PCMA also has one. PCMA has courses. I went through Events Industry Council. If you want to take on that 20 hours worth of knowledge, that's covering all 4 topics. That's using the UN Sustainable Development Goals as the structure. And then I would also say checking out companies like Meet Green, who have documents that you can buy. If you're like, I just want a spreadsheet that'll show me how to track my waste or track my environmental metrics, that's a really easy place to go and find tools you can start using right away.
Yeah, even that question felt just very big. So I'm glad you were able to break it down a bit.
Yeah, I definitely thought about it continuously from the point that you shared the question with me until now to make sure I had something actually tangible. Because I don't want to say, pop it in ChatGPT. I don't want to say, pop it in Google. We all need to know where to find reputable information. And that's part of kind of how we ended up in this situation is lots of people can say things that are not very trustworthy and it changes our habits in the wrong direction. So I want to give you really useful stuff.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Our next question for you is, what are some examples of practical applications you've seen for executing any of these areas of sustainability, any kind of best practices you have?
I have so many best practices. I would have to redirect you. Okay, I know there's a time later, but I'm going to say my podcast is called Sustainable Events Dog Walk, and I go 10 minutes at a time on individual topics. But I'll focus on some things that you can start right away that it can affect multiple areas of your business, because I think that also really helps us as small business owners. Seeing an impact in our business helps us feel like we're doing the right thing. So first of all, like I said, niche down, pick the one thing that you personally have the energy to deal with and think about, and start incorporating that habitually into your practices. Start asking your clients on onboarding, how are you interested in this? Whether it is economic, do you already contribute to any charities that I should know about? What are your interests outside of what your company is focused on? Whether that's corporate or nonprofit, they'll still have partners, secondary interests, those sorts of things. If it's environmental, you can ask them, do you have any particular environmental concerns or things that you already do that I can help support you in? No, you're not trying to put it on your clients, but you're trying to open the door so that you have show off this serviceability that you have so that you can start asking your vendors. Then do all the same things with your vendors. Hey, everybody, this is the thing I'm working on. I'm trying to reduce water waste with all of my orders, all of my practice. How can you support me in that? And how are you looking at these topics and I can support you? Keep the reciprocity going. And then with every quote, every RFP, every point of contact, be bringing those things up again, whatever your area of interest is, and collect that information. Give it a column in your spreadsheet so that you're tracking that. And then remind everybody, your vendors, yourself, your clients, this is useful information that we're learning that everyone would be interested to know about. We're always suffering for what to put in our marketing. We're always digging for new things to talk about. So if you can start saying twice a month in your social, had a meeting with a vendor today, learned all about the recycling practices at their business that I never knew about. I'm so excited to share and to work with this business that has these cool practices. Same thing, I just did an event and we were able to divert all of the flowers to a local charity that the event organizers care about. And that is something I was able to facilitate at no extra cost. And it made such a great difference. And look at how happy the grandmas are who are all have their flowers in their nursing home. You know, being able to not only do that work because it's good and it makes you feel like, okay, I'm touching on the sustainability things that matter to me. I'm listening to my clients and making sure that they're happy. You're also getting the marketing benefit. You're able to talk about it in a way that's concrete. It's not greenwashing. It's not overblowing. It's just real. And it gives people a way to engage and understand your business better.
Thank you so much for that, Alycia. Super helpful. And I am really excited to transition into this next part of the episode, which we teased earlier, which is where we're doing a live consult with you. We're going to put you on the spot, no pressure, where Logan and I each are going to share examples from recent events, and you can kind of help talk us through examples of sustainability or maybe what was missing and just consult us through that process. So I will go first with my event that I chose. And Alycia, I'm gonna make it a little bit easier on you to start because I'm choosing an event that we both have been at recently, and so I'm gonna paint kind of a picture, and then I am curious your feedback. So, Alycia and I just were on site at a very large event with like 7,000 attendees, and at this event, I've done it a few years, and I've noticed things change over time. So what I have noticed this year is that they, at least I think from some of the meals, they were using like I think it was bamboo plates or something like that. Last year, I noticed they used like plateware in China, just like washable things, and so that shift has happened. But maybe in my mind, I'm like, both aren't bad. Like they weren't necessarily using styrofoam in past years either, but I've seen that shift year over year. I know that they give attendees water bottles when they go to registration, and those are like aluminum, I think. So I'm just painting a picture of some of the things that are happening. Um, Last year, I recall they had, so many supplies left over that like we left with a bunch of supplies because we're like, we'll take this because they didn't want to ship it back. And so this year I didn't notice a leftover amount of supplies, which means maybe they ordered what they need or they had a different ship it back plan. And then they use a lot of digital boards, but I also still recall a lot of just like some type of printed signage as well. And so this is a large conference, 7,000 people. There's lots of people moving in and out of spaces and doing all of the things. So from that perspective of it being a large conference and some of the context that I just gave to listeners about the things that I've seen, what have you noticed about either improvements from last year to this year or just general things that they can improve for so many people being in a space and being at an event at one time?
Yeah, this one is really interesting. I think this is where we start to see a big split between small organizations putting on medium-sized events and huge events with 7,000 people. It takes so much consideration from the beginning. Looking at things like the plateware, I'm very much preferring reusables versus disposables of any kind. We still need to find places to take those and land to process even compostables. It's, still adding to the process where using reusables keeps it in circulation a lot longer and is a lot preferable for a lot of reasons. But I think they are in some ways doing better for that show. It looked to me like the printed signage around that wasn't digital was at least on things like honeycomb board instead of styrofoam. Like they're looking at the right types of things. But at this level, it really takes having one of the big organizations at the top orchestrating a set of rules with everyone on site of what's allowed. And that comes all the way down to if they allow the sponsor booths who are there in sort of a trade show style to bring a big stack of flyers to hand out, at that stage, really implementing we're going to not use plastic wrap on things. We're not going to have disposables of this type or that type. One of the things that as we were walking around and looking, I was a little bit like, about was some of the huge signage they produced like on vinyl and things that was branded specifically to 2025, as opposed to having signage that is neutral that can be reused. And they do have some of those things as well, especially like the big sculptural pieces and things like that are just in all of their brand colors and they can rotate them around. But anything that's going to be this year's branding that's special, renaming the stages because it matches the theme of this year, all of those signs, anything that's printed physically is then completely waste. And it's a lot harder to find a home for those or a smart disposal method. So for something huge, I think that's where you have to go all the way up to the top. There are some companies that are doing more and doing better to say, like, we'll go through and really tick this and manage all of the vendors from a sustainability standpoint. But also for everyone, things like if you're doing a recurring event, having the branded stuff that's generic that can be used year on year, and then having the digital signage or the projections or things like that be the things that are this year specific, this year's branding in particular, the title of this year's event if it changes, having those really strategic choices of what's disposed and what's reused.
All right. Well, I feel like I probably should have come up with a different example than Alycia for us to flex a different sustainability, because my question also was from a sporting event that I worked.
Okay.
And just in general with what I do with game presentation, we have a lot of signage that I saw on Instagram somewhere that there's a company that takes old Broadway sets when the Broadway shows close, and they turn pieces of the set, like usually any of the fabric, they turn them into handbags and like napkins and just like things that are like for then the Broadway nerds out there, just like really cool upcycling. And that in my head was like, oh my gosh, are there companies out there that would do this? As
So
we left
cool.
my event, we had a huge canvas 2025, branded, that somebody joked. They were like, oh, does anyone need a bedspread? I'm like, that's more like a tarp to cover your car. Or like, again, just something. With my role, I'm not getting the one who gets to make those decisions, but I was just thinking with our conversation, it's like a value add to me could be that I just have a 1-pager that's for my sports clients. That's like, 6 sustainability considerations, for your event. Like I'm like, we throw out t-shirts for the t-shirt toss, and sometimes they come individually wrapped in plastic. So it's like, is that a simple email to your t-shirt vendor that's like, hey, can you just box them? Or even just, if you have to use plastic, put them all in one big bag. Or hats too. Like I'm like, hats that we throw out, we're going to take them out of, like, the plastic just turns into waste, versus if it's maybe one big plastic bag with 15 hats in it, that's probably less plastic than 15 individually wrapped hats. Like, just if you're talking about incremental. But yeah, I also, though, I'm like sitting here being like, with what time, as many planners, it's like, with what time? I'd have to research like where to upcycle signage. Like I'm thinking of those clothing bags where you can ship your clothing, gently used clothing, and they upcycle it somewhere. I'm like, does that exist for canvas backdrops?
Yeah, well, and okay, here's the thing. I suspect yes. There's a couple of waste disposal companies that are like on my list to learn more about and research so that I can talk about them more. So it's possible that companies like around the Seattle area, we have a company called Ridwell that gets rid of really specific items like batteries or plastic wrap or things that have to have a special disposal. There's a company called TerraCycle that does the same thing. And it's very possible that they have overlap into things that we're doing at events and would be able to handle. Some of the weird things would be like, we might have a lot bigger volume than they would normally have. But when it comes to things like getting better service from your vendors, if you don't want tons of thin plastic wrap on stuff, that is the sort of thing that is an economic mover. The more we start creating conversation that there is a market for these types of considerations, the better service we're going to get around it. So sometimes you do have to bite the bullet and be the person who sends that email. And even if the answer is no, at least now you know for next year that this is a vendor who's not willing to play ball. And you can present that to them next year and say, here's what we did last year, here's the bid, and here's the new parameters. I'm going to find someone else unless you wrap with twine or brown paper instead of plastic. Like, solve this problem for me because it's coming straight from you. And this is one of the reasons why in the EU and in some states in the US, there are rules and laws being implemented that if you are the originator of a type of material, you are responsible for the waste disposal of that material throughout its entire life. Because things like batteries, I, as a homeowner, don't have a convenient knowledge of how to dispose of batteries correctly and accurately. If you have made them, you should have to take them back and deal with that, because like I didn't give birth to batteries. I don't know how to take them apart again. So that's where talking to these types of vendors and being like, hey, this is a big deal for us. We buy a lot of t-shirts over the course of a season. We're asking you to change this for us. And if it takes you a while to figure it out, that's cool. We're not trying to be like turning the screw on you. We just want to get going in this right direction. And then the other thing I want to bring up that comes into play for both of those questions that you were bringing up, Logan, is starting a practice all the time with either your clients or yourself or your coworkers or whoever are the people involved that, and this actually comes through for Mary for our conference as well from last year with the overage. Anything we bring to site, as soon as we talk about bringing it, we have to have a plan for its exit. Just like people, anything that comes on site, specifically and clearly, we need to know how it leaves. Is it trash? Is there a disposal plan? Is it being adopted by someone? Is it being absorbed into someone else's office or supply chain? Is there a local organization that can come and pick it up? Like, even if it's the plastic wrap around an individual hat, it's coming. What's the plan to get rid of it? And starting to think of things that way helps with, everybody from waste always likes to remind it's reduce, reuse, recycle. So first, if we can reduce, that's the best. And one of the great ways to do that is to go, okay, if we bring 100 clipboards on site for our 25 staff members, how do we take those clipboards away again? If we bring 50 hats and with those come 2 trash bags worth of trash, how does that trash leave again? And really specifically and clearly always address those things. Then you at least get the idea, the visual of what's happening, and you can start to control it and see where you need to start intervening.
I have a rapid fire question for you, Alycia, just because you talk about things small, and I feel like this could be a story I'm telling in my head. But if I'm buying water for my crew and I need to buy bottled water essentially versus telling them, again, I have some events where we tell people to bring their own, but I need to give bottled. If I go to the grocery store and I just need to buy a case of water and I see a case of plastic bottles, a case of, again, I don't know if they're aluminum, but metal bottles, I've been trying to consciously look for the metal bottles. The hard part is I can't do cans because they can't close, and around AV equipment and things need to close. Is that a sustainable choice, doing that? Or am I still choosing wrong by even saying I need bottles still?
It is absolutely a better choice. You are on the right path completely. Plastic is, with the exception, I would say, of food service and medical service, there's no upside to plastic. It is really detrimental on every possible level. It sucks. If we can get rid of plastic, we should. Excluding, we can keep using plastic and syringes as long as we want. Medical is totally different, but this is what I'm coming at. The upside with metal is that it can be recycled way easier and way more effectively than plastic. It can be refilled way more easily and way more effectively than those same plastic, especially for the price comparison, all those crunchy little bottles that are just trash on the first use. So it is completely better, and it matches what I'm trying to get across, which is being a little bit better is the win. You still, your company is not going to go for ordering custom reusable bottles for everybody because of the cost and the time and the number that we don't know how many or whatever. All good. Metal is better than plastic. 2 thumbs up. That's a win.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
We love 2 thumbs up. And I love your perspective on this overall, Alycia, because it really feels like I think it's like your whole take on it is that we can do small things and still make an impact, make a positive impact. And I feel like that's the impression I've got from these examples. So thank you for live consulting with us on those and letting us put you on the spot. And before we end, we do want to ask you, what else, is there anything else you want to add that we didn't get to cover? And then also just share with listeners what you're up to next and where they can find you.
Yeah. Do I have anything to add? I think I just want to end on better is better. Doing the best you can is excellent. And that by doing that consistently, everybody, rising tides raise all ships. We're all raising our expectations of what's going on. And better is better. I am obsessed with that. So just, if you can get a metal bottle instead of a plastic one, do it. In order to find me, LinkedIn, for Alycia Drube and Positive Impact Event Consulting. I am available there. My website is alyciadrube.com. You can find the links to those. You don't have to remember how to spell my name on the first try. And then, as I mentioned before, I have a podcast called Sustainable Events Dog Walk. I record while I walk my dog. No dog is required to consume my podcast. It's just 10 minutes at a time of a little nugget along these lines to help you mull over and think about the choices that you're making. And upcoming, I would love, if you are interested in this and you want to be hearing more, please join my newsletter. It is coming out sparsely right now, but I'm working on a pilot project for group consulting to try to get this pumping out a bit quicker. And I'm going to be having some new options available for purchase and through my consulting. And then if you're gung-ho and you're ready and you're like, I like how Alycia talks, I'm on board with this, I want to start right away and transform my business, I do have consulting packages that I would be very excited to talk to you about, and you can schedule a call with me very easily on my website.
Amazing. Yeah. And we'll have all of your links in the show notes, listeners. But yes, highly recommend following her on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Alycia.
Thank you. I was really happy to be invited.
And that does bring us to the end of our episode, which we have our bonus tip as always, and Logan has our bonus tip today.
Yeah, this one's a little personal, listeners. My bonus tip this week is to keep extra deodorant and a pair of sunglasses in your event bag. I always have deodorant in my bag these last few years, but I recently had a client tell me that she just buys multiple pairs of her favorite sunglasses, and one of them permanently lives in her event bag, so she never forgets them. You never know when you need to reapply deodorant on site or get asked to help out outside at an event. And I just feel like I'm really good at remembering the deodorant, but I always forget the sunglasses. So future you will thank you.
Logan, great bonus tip. I'm laughing. I just reapplied deodorant at an event, and the person who was like in charge of this area was like, "Can you please go do that in the bathroom?" I thought I was being secretive, and they asked me to go do it in the bathroom. I was being subtle. Okay. Anyway, this is a great tip. Couldn't agree more. So thank you everyone for listening again this week to an episode of the Better Events Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can connect with Logan and I directly on LinkedIn and Alycia as well. So just go ahead and find us and let us know that you heard about us from the podcast. And if you want more Better Events content, you can join our private community on Substack. There are lots of ways to get involved. But just thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with you again next Wednesday.